Hi, this is Julie, also known as a science geek. So what are you wearing right now? That question has taken on kind of new meaning in light of the coronavirus pandemic going on right now, but it's still a fun way to start. Over the years, I've gotten questions on science and, to explain things to friends and family. And I noticed a serious uptick in the questions starting in February and really escalating through March. And a lot of these questions are because of the incredibly large amount of information that is coming out now about the coronavirus, and it's coming at us hourly, new information 24/7, and it gets confusing, and there is a lot of it. So I thought I would help out with some of the basic kind of terminology that's being used, because the words and the terms are really important to kind of be able to sift through this mountain of information. So I've never done videos before. This is my first try, but hey, anybody can learn new skills. So first, I've been lucky to have a career in science, which it's great because I've always loved it, and to get to do what you love every day is fabulous. And I've had about 30 years of my career has actually been in immunology and in infectious diseases. So this area is something I'm familiar with, comfortable with, aware of, etc. And I hope I can help translate some of this jargon and terms to something more easily understandable so that we can all get it. First, let me say pandemic versus epidemic. So we were kind of used to hearing about epidemics. You hear about a flu epidemic, an Ebola epidemic. Epidemic is where you have an outbreak of a disease within a certain area with a lot of people at the same time. That's an epidemic. A pandemic is where it's a type of epidemic, except that it is happening in many locations, globally usually, affecting large percentages of the population. And why are these different? Why do they matter? Think of it like if you had 5 hurricanes in the world that hit at the same time 5 different countries. There would be very local damage, destruction, and death, but it would be very contained to a region. So it would be kind of like an epidemic where you have 5 areas that were very hard hit, but you have your neighboring areas, neighboring countries, to be able to bring in supplies and stuff to be able to help out, to recover from it. That's more like an epidemic. A pandemic is when you have 2,000 hurricanes hit every country in the world at the same time. There's no one to look to for help because everybody is using their own resources to be able to recover from it. So that's the difference between a pandemic and an epidemic. Let's see, novel. So the word novel means new, and we hear about the novel coronavirus. And it's called a novel coronavirus because it's new to humans. We've never seen this particular one in humans, so we don't know anything about it, nothing. We can approximate information because it's very similar to the SARS coronavirus, but this particular one, we don't know anything about it. That's why it's called novel. That's also why scientists and physicians around the world are scrambling, trying to figure it out and get the facts. That's why every hour we're getting new information, new data. We have to be patient and give ourselves time to learn it. The last time we had one of these that I can remember that I was involved with was with HIV. It was new. We had no idea how long it would last, what it looked like, nothing. And it takes time to figure out all of this information. So novel means new, meaning new to humans. We don't know anything about it yet. Also some terms when you hear people talking about the coronavirus, there's 3 terms that kind of get used interchangeably. One is the term coronavirus. So coronavirus is just, that's the type, that's the group, that's the class. It's kind of a generic term for this particular type of virus. Like I said, SARS is a coronavirus type as well. The other term that you hear is the SARS-CoV-2. That is the name of this virus. This particular strain of what is now causing the pandemic, the virus's name is SARS-CoV-2. In the early days, it was called novel coronavirus, but now it has its own name. Then the term COVID-19. That is the disease that is caused by the virus itself. So when someone is sick with the disease caused by the virus, the disease is called COVID-19. So the SARS-CoV-2 is the name of the virus. When someone gets infected and sick with it, they now have the disease COVID-19. It's similar to with HIV. The HIV is the name of the virus, the particular virus. The disease that HIV causes when it infects someone is AIDS. So it's the same way. COVID-19 is the disease, right? So that should help. The other term, and this is causing a lot of sensationalism in the news, so I really want to make you aware of it, the term genetic material versus infective material. So there was a story about one of the Princess cruise ships that they still found coronavirus on board after weeks of not having any passengers. And just recently I saw the same thing about at a hospital they found coronavirus aerosolized and in the air in the hallways. Well, both of those, they were true statements, but if you read underneath where it talked about what they found in those two situations was the genetic material. They did not find infectious particles. So the genetic material is what's inside the virus. The virus is like a capsule, like one of those time-release pills, and inside of it is the actual genetic material. So genetic material is like DNA or RNA. You know, we all have, our genetic material is DNA. Well, for this coronavirus, the genetic material is RNA. By itself, it cannot cause disease. The genetic material by itself, it's just a chemical. It's nature's chemical, but it's a chemical, and it cannot be infective all by itself. We don't think. With all the other infectious material and viruses that have been studied in the past, it would be highly unlikely. That could change, but right now, it's highly, highly unlikely. The experts in the world believe it's highly unlikely. So when you hear someone detected genetic material, it's almost like a fingerprint saying, hey, we know that virus was here and nearby. And that's an important piece of information for scientists to know. Remember, this was a novel virus. We're trying to understand how long can it live? Where does it go? Where does it land? So when you hear stories talk about, ooh, we found it, it was still there, did they find genetic material or did they find infectious virus particles capable of causing the disease? Those are two very different discoveries. So just be aware of genetic material versus infectious particle or something able to cause the actual disease. And remember, we're getting new information every hour. The last thing is you hear people talking about droplets versus aerosols. So droplets and aerosols. So aerosols are like itty bitty teeny tiny droplets. Droplets are what, when you sneeze or you cough, you generate little tiny particles. If you've ever sneezed into a tissue, it gets wet just from you sneezing. Well, those little wet things are actually little droplets that go a certain distance and then fall because they're heavy. They fall and land on solid surfaces or another person if you're that close. But they fall out of the air very quickly and then they land on a solid surface. And they can live on that solid surface for a while, depending on what the surface is. Aerosols are tiny, tiny little droplets and they're so lightweight that they do not fall immediately. They stay suspended in the air. Kind of like, the bubbles when you blow when you're a kid, you blow the bubbles and the bubbles stay up for a while. Well, that's what aerosols do. They're these itty bitty little droplets that stay suspended and they can stay in the air for, they think, a few hours right now. But again, research being done, but they're saying it could be 3 or 4 hours that these aerosols are in the air. If that particular aerosol has an infective agent in it, like a virus particle, that's probably not good. If it contains genetic material by itself, that's not going to cause the disease. So see how all these terms are getting together. So aerosols, very fine. They can stay in the air for several hours, which is why we're doing social physical separation from each other to try and minimize sharing the same air wherever possible. And droplets, they fall out of the air quickly onto solid surfaces, and that's why we need to constantly be careful of touching solid surfaces and then touching our face. So those are just some of the terms. I hope this helps. I'm going to do some more on the immunology behind what's happening, why some people get sick, why don't, and on what's being done in terms of what kind of drugs are coming out, what vaccines are, when, the timelines, just from a very high level, help us understand what we're talking about. So I'll do that later. In the meantime, if you're lucky enough to be able to shelter in place, please stay safe at home. Remember, there's 4 basic things that you can do. 1, stop touching your face. 2, wash your hands often. 3, disinfect solid surfaces. Anything, if you touch it, that means someone else could have, it could be a potential contaminated surface. And maintain your physical distance from people as much as possible, 6 feet, even when you're at home. Just try and be aware of it, because droplets, and please don't panic. But I do want you to be concerned. This is real. But the steps that can be done to fight it and learn about it and deal with it are happening. So be aware, be a good consumer of information. Get the facts. And the facts are coming from the CDC, the WHO, your public health officials, and any reputable academic and medical centers, information like that, they know what they're talking about, and they're all talking to each other, so they're staying as current as possible. And don't forget Dr. Anthony Fauci. I've known him for years. He's a great infectious disease immunologist and a great public health official. We're lucky to have him. So stay safe, and I hope this helps.